Imagine looking out across the endless, shifting sands of the Sahara Desert and seeing something that simply should not exist. A perfect circle, 40 kilometers wide, carved into the earth with what looks like mathematical precision. It's so massive, its true form can only be seen from space. Some call it the Richat Structure. Others call it the Eye of Africa, or the Eye of the Sahara. But there's another theory, a theory whispered for decades, that suggests this geological marvel is something far more profound. This, some believe, might be the true location of the lost city of Atlantis. The Richat Structure sits deep within Mauritania, far from any modern civilization, far from anything that could explain its existence. Mainstream geology tells us it's not an impact crater, it's not volcanic, and it's certainly not man-made. At least, that's what geologists say. But the structure is just too perfect. It's layered like concentric rings, circular like a giant target, with each ring rising and falling in a careful, deliberate pattern. Ancient explorers never mentioned it. Old maps never recorded it. It's almost as if the desert hid it deliberately, swallowing it whole until the advent of the space age. So, how does this mysterious landform connect to a legendary lost city? Let's go back 2,400 years, to the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato. He gave us the first and only detailed description of Atlantis. He described a magnificent circular city, surrounded by concentric rings of land and water. He said it was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which most scholars identify as the Strait of Gibraltar. And he wrote that this incredible civilization was destroyed in a single day and night of violent cataclysms, sinking beneath the earth and vanishing from history. Now, look at the Eye of the Sahara. Concentric rings. Yes, perfectly defined. Circular geometry, unmistakable, and the dimensions. When you compare Plato's measurements to the Richat Structure, they are shockingly close. Plato described an outer ring of about 23 kilometers in diameter, and the inner rings of the eye matched that scale with remarkable accuracy. But what about the water? Atlantis was a naval power, a city of canals. The Sahara is one of the driest places on Earth. Well, this is where it gets interesting. Satellite imagery reveals something hidden to the naked eye. The ghostly outlines of ancient riverbeds and waterways snaking all around the Richat Structure. The area was not always a desert. There's clear evidence it was once a lush, green landscape fed by powerful rivers that flowed toward the Atlantic Ocean. So, the water was there, the circular design is there. The location, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules and south into Africa, fits the description. The coincidences are starting to pile up, but it's the evidence found on the ground that truly challenges our understanding of this place. Researchers digging in and around the structure have found marine fossils, ocean life, in the middle of the Sahara. They've discovered sediment patterns shaped by massive, catastrophic flooding, and they've found rock formations that appear to have been melted by some kind of extreme, sudden heat event. Why is there ocean life hundreds of kilometers from the coast? Why are there signs of a megaflood in a bone-dry desert? And most importantly, why does this structure match both the size and the unique design Plato described for Atlantis? Some scientists argue it's all a coincidence, the result of natural erosion over millions of years. But erosion doesn't carve a perfect circle 40 kilometers across. Natural domes don't typically form with such symmetrical, evenly spaced rings. The official explanation, that it's a geological dome that has eroded over time, just doesn't seem to satisfy the sheer strangeness of what we're looking at. This leads us to the cataclysm theory. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, our planet went through a period of extreme violence. This period is known as the Younger Dryas. Glaciers melted, causing sea levels to rise dramatically. Megafloods, unlike anything seen in modern history, swept across entire continents. And there is growing evidence of a major cosmic impact event around this time, with fragments of a comet or asteroid striking the Earth. In fact, evidence for these impacts has been found all across Africa. If an advanced coastal civilization existed back then, a sudden global catastrophe of this magnitude could have completely erased it, not gradually, over centuries, but instantly. A combination of rising sea levels, massive tsunamis, and shock waves from an impact could have buried a city, altered the landscape, turned a fertile plain into a desolate wasteland, which, of course, is exactly what Plato described, a civilization destroyed in a single, terrible event. Could the melting of the ice sheets have caused the Atlantic to surge inland, flooding the region and burying Atlantis under a tide of water and mud, which later dried to become the Sahara we know today? So, what really happened to Atlantis? Was the Richat Structure once a thriving circular metropolis, a global center of trade, a hub of ancient knowledge and technology, just as the legend claims? If so, the desert did its job well. It buried the city, it covered its canals, it erased its memory for over 10,000 years, And it's only now, with our modern tools, with satellites, with digital mapping, and with AI reconstructions, that we are finally able to see its ghostly shape again, staring back at us from the sand. The eye of the Sahara remains silent, a giant question mark etched onto the face of our planet, but its rings tell a story of water in a place where there should be none, a story of unimaginable destruction, a story of something our species forgot, a chapter of our history that was violently torn out. Maybe Atlantis wasn't just a myth, maybe it was a memory, and maybe, just maybe, it was a warning. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you're fascinated by the hidden corners of history, subscribe to Mystery Vault, where ancient shadows rise again. We'll see you next time.